Hello. If you're still here, I would be enormously surprised, but I'm grateful that you might have popped in, and you may be here now looking at the zombie stream, not the live stream. You may be watching me in the future. Hello, people of the future. I'm talking in this video, and I'm going to aim to be about 20 minutes, probably, maybe a bit shorter, maybe slightly longer. I'm going to be talking about the first part of classical rhetoric, which is much more interesting than it sounds. And the reason I'm doing that is because as you may have heard already, I'm delivering a course in public speaking. And that starts on Saturday, the 12th. And my plan is just to make it possible for lots of people possibly you, to do public speaking more comfortably and more adequately, better than you might otherwise do. So particularly the aim is to improve the quality of the stuff that you put in, and also to give you enough confidence to do it instead of not doing it. Now, why you want to do it is a whole other thing. It's a kind of a bit of a mystery. And it can be very difficult when you're talking to perhaps no one to know how do you talk. So right this second, I am talking to no one because it's 11 minutes past the time when I said I was going to start this. So apologies for that. I'm demonstrating, I hope, how not to be perfect. And the reason why I'm happy to demonstrate that instead of running away and being all shy about it is because talks don't go the way that you expect them to. Things go wrong. You might even be 10 or 11 minutes late. And it's okay, because if you have a message to put across, you will do your best and you will deliver it. And whether people receive it in the way that you hope they receive it or not is not up to you. You can't control that. All you can do is attempt to make it approximately right for your audience. And in this first session, I am going to try to demonstrate why the most important thing for you to do when you're thinking about doing a talk is to think about what do you want to achieve by that talk. It sounds really crazy and so obvious and so simple. But many people, when they're doing a talk, seem to think first about the content. What am I going to talk about? And it's not actually all that important. You can talk about almost anything as long as you're clear what your sort of purpose is. Why are you doing this? And so, for example, I have a certain number of people who are interested in my book because they're about to give a wedding speech. And I have some people, apparently my dog is interested in giving a speech. I have some people who are interested in giving a speech because they are at work. I'm going to be delivering a corporate workshop in a couple of days. And the title of that workshop is How to Speak Like a Human, because a lot of people feel that they turn into sort of robots when they're talking. So there are different people here. That's what I'm trying to say there. There's the audience who are in touch with me at the moment about their wedding speech. There's an audience of people in very stiff organizations who want to be a bit more human. And the reason I'm running this course starting on Saturday is to help people who work in the fields of therapy and counseling and coaching to do public speaking better and with more confidence. So they have a whole different range of interests. So what I'm trying to draw your attention to try to be very sort of meta about that. I hate that word now because it sort of means Facebook, but to be looking at myself and what I'm doing in order for you to see it and think, well, maybe there's something I could do here. So what I'm doing right now is I'm describing to you my audience, and you're my audience, and my audience might also include wedding speech makers, corporate people who want to be a bit more human, therapist-y, coachy people. And so I'm thinking about who are these people and what do they want? What is of use to them? What can I say that's of use to them? And I'm trying, by thinking about them, you, to give myself some clarity about the things that I want to talk about. And it's mind-numbingly simple when you think about it, but unless you talk to people before you give talks and think about how you're giving your talk and what you're going to do and how you're going to structure it, you just might not think of these things. So forgive me if what I say is obvious, but it's really important to get this first step in classical rhetoric actually really clearly done and really thought through. And it can help you a great deal to make some notes. So I hope that if you're watching this, you're going to take from it whatever is useful to you. And I suspect that for many people, to be perfectly honest, all you need is what I'm telling you in this video. But if you want more, and if you want to work with me one-to-one and talk to me about what you have in mind, that's great. Sign up for the course. Really, it's not a big hard sell, because all I'm doing is I'm running this course so that I can mention to people that I've published a book about it, a modest book about how to make an adequate speech. But when people come on the course, I do all I can to make the course really successful for them, you, whoever you may be. And there's lots of nice comments and things from people who've been on the course on my website. So you can go and look at that. I'm not going to repeat them all now. The thing about this first step in rhetoric, and I'm going to look away from the camera now so that I can look at this mind map that I've drawn, and which I simply don't know how to share on YouTube Live. So maybe I won't use YouTube Live often again. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Yeah, maybe I won't. Anyway, I'm looking at this mind map, which is incredibly simple to describe. The first step in rhetoric, in making a speech, and in fact in writing anything, is to think about what is it you're doing and why are you doing it? What's the purpose of it? And one of the best tips I was ever given on that as a speaker was someone said to me, ask how you want the audience to be changed by your talk. Whether it's a big or a small change, doesn't matter. How do you want them to be changed by your talk? And I said, I want this to happen. And once I had that in mind, I knew that I'm here to attempt to make that happen. So really kind of anything that I talk about will work. Quite often the reason, the change that I want to produce in an audience is just to be entertained, to laugh, to be happy. And at other times, what I want to do is to persuade them of something. So then I have to know what is it that I want to persuade them about. And I have to know a little bit more about the audience as well. Because if they hold a very different point of view, then I have to work more to persuade them to do that thing. And if they're holding that kind of view, but not very strongly, I just have to just nudge them over the line. So there are different ways in which I might express that. I might be quite forceful with the first lot, and with the others I might be a little bit more relaxed, because if I was too forceful they might be alienated. So I think you can probably hear from this that it's important for me to know my audience as much as possible. And on this mind map that I've got in front of me on my screen, there are the things that I call the 5 W's and the H, and these are single words that are very important to anyone who does any kind of writing, and I learned them first as a journalist. What, where, when, why, who, and how. Those questions. What is the occasion? What am I going to be talking about, broadly speaking? Where am I talking about it? Because that makes a difference. If I go and deliver my talk in some remote village on another continent, I'll have to explain some things much more detailed than I would if I was doing it around the corner from the thing that I'm talking about. When am I talking about it? Am I talking about it before the Prime Minister resigns? Or am I talking about it after the disaster has taken place? Am I talking about it in the evening when people are tired? Am I talking about it after someone else? Am I talking about it after someone else who's very funny? Therefore, do I want to think about not even trying to be funny in case that's spoiled? So there's the moment of speaking, and also how long am I speaking? That's part of when. Am I going to speak for 10 minutes? I said I'm going to do this for 20 minutes, so I've got about another 10 to go. Why am I speaking? I've already somewhat touched on that, but there are lots of different motives. I might be speaking for money. I might be speaking in order to practice. I might be speaking for the sheer novelty of it. I might be speaking because they want me to do it for some reason. I might be speaking because I want something different from that, and I'm trying to adjust that. So what am I doing it for? I've already mentioned something about the audience and understanding my audience. Are they already well informed? Are they already quite persuaded of the thing that I want to persuade them about? Are they desperate to be entertained and therefore easier to be entertained? If they're at a funeral, probably I don't go to entertain anyone. So I've got to think about all of these things about what do they want, what are they expecting, and how can I play with those wants and expectations. I might not want to deliver what they expect. If I'm at a funeral, I probably do more or less want to deliver the kind of thing that they expect. The same with a wedding. Are they reluctant to be there? That often happens with workplace talks. Nobody really wants to be there. They'd rather get on with something else, but this speaker's been drafted in and they kind of have to turn up because the boss will complain otherwise. Now, as a speaker, it's really helpful to me to know if my audience is reluctant or not to pretend that I think that they're very keen, because it just allows me to think about it from their point of view. So keep on putting myself out of my own head and think about them. How can I be of service to them? That might sound a bit weird, but even if I'm going to deliver a message that they don't want, they don't like, I still try to think, how am I going to be of service to this audience? And that is more or less, I haven't mentioned how, I just decided to do the W's first. It doesn't really matter, you can do them in any order, but how am I going to do this talk with no script, with a script? Am I going to use props? It might be much better if I can demonstrate something. I did already, I think, wave this book around. Is that enough use of the props? Am I going to read from it? I'm not actually, but if you're doing a certain kind of talk, you might want to take in your invention, like people do in Dragon's Den. You might want to demonstrate. If you're one of the therapists I mentioned that I'm talking about, you might want to do a talk where you demonstrate something with a client. That client becomes, in a way, your prop, if I'm allowed to say that. You might want to think about whether you're delivering it alone or with other people. You might want to think about whether you're going to be talking with, there are three components of classical rhetoric that have unfortunate names, but I'll try to translate them into modern English. One of them is ethos, which is it's all the stuff about who you are, why you're an expert. I wave the book around, so I'm kind of an expert on public speaking just because someone believed I was enough of an expert to publish a book. Part of my ethos is also that I'm a bit modest about it. So I was a bit modest about my book. I said someone decided I was enough of an expert, and the book is called A Modest Book. So that's kind of my kind of claim to being any kind of a person you should be listening to on YouTube. There are plenty of other people elsewhere who adopt a kind of I know everything and follow me because I'm the big expert, and that's a perfectly legitimate tactic to take. It may be the tactic that you want to take with your talk. So that's ethos, which is one of the kind of components of the bits of your content, without talking about the subject matter. So you might be intending to talk about scaffolding, but you'll still have ethos. Why are you the expert on scaffolding? If you're going to a wedding, like, what is your ethos? What do you bring to this? Well, you're the best man, or you're the bride, so you need to position yourself to the audience, your audience, in such a way that they kind of understand who they're hearing from. That's kind of what ethos is. And then another very important component of ethos, of rhetoric, part of the sort of your ingredients, is known as logos, which kind of means reasoning, your logical reasoning, your argument. It doesn't have to be logical, it could be illogical if you want to just baffle people. But it's the kind of the thinking, the mental sentences that go together to make your argument. So the logos, the reasoning in my talk is, in this talk right now, to be meta again, is that I'm arguing that you need to know who your audience is, and I'm trying to demonstrate that with a few little bits and bobs and ways for you to think about who your audience is, some questions you might ask yourself. So this is the reasoning, and I suppose underlying that reasoning is, why do I think you need to know about your audience and the purpose and the function? Because because if you don't, you'll end up doing what I said some beginners do, which is just thinking about your very interesting stories about scaffolding, or your very cheeky jokes that some people turn up at weddings with. And unfortunately, those often tend to crash because you haven't, if you haven't thought about your audience, then you might not have thought that that audience would really hate that joke. And that audience already knows that stuff about scaffolding. So you got to really think about, what is this occasion in which you're talking? Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? And how are you going to do it? What is your purpose? That is my logos, my reasoning in this talk now, this video. And the third major component that the ancient Greeks came up with when they were trying to work out what is public speaking is pathos, which actually means the full wide range of emotions. I do talks sometimes where I talk about how I had a breakdown in 2017-18 and I went into psychiatric hospital, and as I'm sure you can imagine, those talks, the emotional content can be quite heavy, quite dark. That's okay. It's what's required in that talk. If I turned up and I was all breezy about it and made loads of jokes about it, I would really be quite discreditable. Nobody would take me seriously. So I tried to describe what it's really like to feel totally worthless and ashamed of oneself and go into hospital and gradually get better, and to give a glimpse of what it's like to be the person who feels better and happier and cheerful and occasionally willing to make the odd joke. And so what I'm doing there, if you think about the speech without the logos, without the reasoning, is I'm presenting the spectacle of a man who shows what it's like to be very sad, anxious, depressed, then becomes healed, and then becomes happier. That's what a person who didn't speak English would understand from those talks that I deliver. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that's a very large part of the effect of those particular speeches. If you're delivering a speech on scaffolding, you may have emotional content, you may not. Right now, I'm just sitting here imagining that a talk about scaffolding is going to be very sort of analytical and logical. But of course, people who do scaffolding will have exciting, scary stories to tell about how they nearly died once, and funny stories to tell, I'm sure, and stories across the whole wide range of emotion. And if you choose the right emotion at the right moment, you'll have the right effect, probably. You can never guarantee that. So what I'm trying to talk about now in this first live stream, and I will do more, is how this first step of inventing your talk, the Greeks called it, with a Greek word, invention. That's what you're doing first. In your first move as a public speaker, and indeed as a writer, I'm a writer by background, you're first thinking, what am I doing this for? What's the purpose that I'm hoping to achieve? Given that you can't force it to have that outcome because you're not in charge of the universe, what's the best thing you can do in order to lead in that direction? I hope that you found this useful. Whatever hasn't been useful, ignore it. And whatever has prompted you to think about something you might do yourself, please run off and play with that idea. I'm going to do another of these live streams. I'm going to aim not to be late for the next one. It will be the same time tomorrow, Tuesday, the 8th of February, 1 p.m. I hope to see you here. Bye.